caution. Your paradigm is about to shift at the intersection of fact and reason. You're entering Kingston Country.
I'm Dan Kingston, and you're listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast. Joining the podcast today is Frank from the popular Let's Be Frank YouTube channel with well over 8 million views. You can catch his live streams on YouTube every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Pacific, but you do a ton of other content too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And that 8 million views, that's crazy. Is that for real?
Yeah, that's for real. And actually, it's probably a little bit more than that because I privated a lot of, probably over 200 videos right before the new COPA thing. Anything that I thought was kind of questionable or borderline, I went ahead and made private. So
Smart.
I privated almost 200 other videos.
Well, yeah, good forward thinking on that. So the previous podcast, I spoke to a conspiracy theory expert on this issue going on right now, but you recently spoke to someone actually on the ground in China. Do I have that correct?
He's actually in Asia. He's in Thailand right now. I actually have, he's one of my contacts out in Asia, and he works trying to help me get other contacts that's in mainland China, which sometimes is kind of difficult to do.
Yeah.
But he has secured somebody to come on the show tomorrow night with us. But what Alex, he's from Reported by Media and Travel out in Asia, he went ahead and gave me an update of all the information he was receiving from China, since he is fairly close. And he just recently visited China just in the last month.
Wow. What have you learned? Because in the mainstream media on CNN, MSNBC, it's been impeachment coverage nonstop, and they're not even, a little bit of coverage today, but it's very topical coverage. They're not really getting into it. People are shrugging their shoulders and saying, it's not a big deal. But I'm quite alarmed, and I'm not an alarmist. What have you learned?
What I've learned from him during our interview yesterday and talking behind the scenes as well is that what we're currently seeing in Wuhan, China, and the rest of mainland China, the Chinese government is now taking a more serious approach to this. I believe it kind of flew under the radar from what he had told me for a little bit, but it did originate in Wuhan, China, within the fish market. It's a black market where they sell exotic things to eat. So that is what
it's a black market. So it's not officially government sanctioned or anything like that. It's just kind of under the radar.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you go into an open air market, they just have meat hanging, kind of the same kind of scene that you could picture. Go in and not refrigerate it, just hanging there. You just kind of take it, they take it home and they cook it. So there's no regulation or oversight on how that meat is being handled.
You also reported or let me know that it sounds like it's not airborne at this point. They're saying it looks like it could be person to person. Well, for a long time, China was saying, oh, no, it's not even person to person. But I guess they're saying maybe like physical contact. Is that what you learned?
Yeah, Alex had told me it was more transferable through bodily fluids currently right now.
Then is a face mask, does that help then?
The face mask, he said, was a precautionary step on China's behalf to try to just stop any type of spread of any type of thing. So they were taking a precautionary step, is that what he mentioned? But they are making the face mask mandatory, though, right now. And right now, as you may know, Wuhan is a completely sanctioned off. It is a quarantined off, and they are currently under construction of a new hospital there that the Chinese government said they want completed in 6 days. And I asked Alex if they would be able to accomplish such a feat in 6 days, and he said that the last time he was there and he spoke with some people there in the Chinese government, he didn't want to elaborate whom they were, but he said that they most certainly do have the capability of producing such a building in such a short time.
Well, of course, they have no regulations or anything. Doesn't matter how many people have to die building it. They're like the pyramids. They'll just crack their whip and say, build it. I'm sure we could do that too if we didn't have any standards or didn't care how we protect our own people. And last episode, it's Is it still a conspiracy theory, the fact that this level 4 biolab, the only one in all of China, just happens to be reportedly just 20 miles away from the center of this fish market or black market, animal market, or whatever it is? It seems like a huge coincidence to me. Is that still a conspiracy theory at this point?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I just read about that today. I was in the battles of Twitter, and I believe I saw somebody tweet something about it, so I kind of looked into it myself. It is a striking coincidence that it did originate in the proximity of a...
Nobody's talking about this. Nobody.
No, nobody. And I haven't had the opportunity right now. Alex is sleeping over in Asia right now, so I haven't had an opportunity to reach back out to him after I saw that. But I will be speaking with him this evening because I do have a special guest on tonight talking about the crisis in Puerto Rico, which is unrelated to the Chinese thing. But I'll
you
have
an amazing amount of content. Anybody who's listening, definitely check out Let's Be Frank YouTube channel. It'll keep you tuned in because there's so much there about every single issue going on. It's amazing what you're doing there. Look, officially, they've banned travel for 35 million people, I guess. That's the official report at this point. And what else? A 36-year-old man from China has reportedly passed away, which reminded me of the Spanish flu, because that's such a scary thing about that Spanish flu is it affected very young people, which normally don't get sick that bad or don't die from the flu, right?
Yeah, correct. And also, where Alex was reporting from, which was in Thailand, they had 4 reported cases there in Thailand where he was at. He was outside of the controlled disease center where he was reporting from. And as of his report, which was aired today on my channel, 3 had been released already and they had been cleared. Only 1 is still currently in there under observation at the moment.
That's good news. So maybe it's not as bad as people think, but the question is, why are some people in these videos like dropping over? Do you think that's just because they have been avoiding medical treatment? Maybe they're sick already, and so this is happening. You know, the flip side to it is they're censoring a lot of the videos. Only a few videos are getting out. I think there's a lot of confusion how dangerous this could be. Look, Frank, would you recommend to your family members that they should go out and buy like face masks? Because you know if this thing hits the United States with more than just a few cases, that's going to sell out right away.
Oh, yeah, that would definitely be something that I would recommend. Just to be precautionary, I mean, we should be practicing good habits anyway. Even right now, we're in the midst of a flu season in our own country right now. It's about the time we have our own flu season where, many people get sick and we have people, die yearly from the flu still here in this country, even though of our advanced medications and stuff like that, it still happens. So, yeah, I mean, taking extra precautions such as that would not be a bad thing. I actually have seen, not currently like today, but over the course of the last couple of years, more people where I live actually wear face masks during this time of year just so they, I guess they feel better about not spreading germs their way or maybe inhaling them. I personally don't have any myself right now, but I wouldn't, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a couple on hand.
People are concerned. I got to tell you, the analytics on the previous episode I did on the coronavirus, it just like jumped. And so I feel a responsibility to do another episode, which is what we're doing right now, because I think that there's not much information. In fact, I wondered, why is this episode spiking? I went to Apple Podcasts. I just typed in coronavirus to see. There's no one is talking about this. Why? Is it that they're afraid to cause panic or they don't think that people care? Trust me, people are concerned. Don't you get that vibe?
I do, and I absolutely agree with you. I was wondering the same thing. Why isn't this being covered even more than it is? And that's why I tapped Alex and said, hey, Alex, I said, I think we have an opportunity here to look at some of this stuff where the mainstream media is not really covering it right now because
a responsibility. We have to
with impeachment.
We owe it to our listeners, right? Not just an opportunity, but a responsibility to give them this information because no one's talking about the biolab. Nobody's talking about how many real deaths are there. I mean, it's China. Let's be real. They're saying 18, multiply that by 10. Am I wrong to make that assumption?
Oh, right. Well, I mean, everything that China is controlled is the state-run media, basically. So anything that's coming out there has to be gone through the state first before they release any type of information.
Huh.
And again, getting outside information, the videos that we are currently seeing that are coming out that's slowly leaking out, that's only probably because they're using VPNs and being able to get them out of the country. Because
Right.
once you get to China, you're unable to use Google or any of these other tools that we have here in the United States and other Western countries. So it's very restrictive as far as the type of internet they're allowed to use. That everything they have is set up for China. I mean, they have their own type of Google, they have their own type of Facebook, and their own type of Twitter.
Right.
So they all have, it's a similar system that we have over here as far as the communication, but it's all state controlled over there.
And people have been arrested. Chinese have been arrested for showing videos, so they're cracking down hard on it. Now, Shanghai Disneyland is closed, and that they wouldn't close down Disneyland if they weren't really worried about it spreading, because that thing brings in a lot of money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Disney's always, heck, they were open during a hurricane around here at one point here in the state of Florida. So, I mean, Disney takes, they take the calculated risk of, how can we operate within, these things. If they feel like it's bad enough, they will shut down. And if for something like that in Shanghai, China right now, for them to be shut down, it's a sign of something more troubling. And don't forget, this is also their Lunar New Year, so this is a big travel time of the year for the Chinese. There, millions of people are in transit, and I know they've shut down a lot of the transit around China right now, trying to stop the spread of this virus.
Did you see the videos of the hospitals are overrun, the people in like crowded halls, and one guy just is like holding his head, just like he's like, oh my God, you can't hear him say that. I'm imagining him like, oh my God, because they're packed in like sardines in there. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Is that necessary? You have to do that? Is that what has to be done, or are they treating them like animals?
I think maybe with just the amount of facilities they have and them packing them in the way they do, maybe they don't have another choice to do the way they're currently doing. And maybe that's why the order for a new hospital to be constructed was put out there. I mean, how
do you think, Frank, if this happened in America, would the officials say, go to the hospitals by law, you have to go to the hospitals even if they were overrun? And would they cram Americans into hospitals like that? Or would they say, listen, unless it's really severe, you should just self-quarantine?
I would like to think that we would go that route, but, knowing some of our state governments and the way they ran, who knows how they would direct some of those orders to go. I would prefer to be self-quarantined if it was, if I knew the hospitals were being overran the way they were. Yeah.
I'd hope that there'd still be some liberty and it wouldn't go straight to more martial law or what have you. Look, the experts think this could last months, I guess, and France has 2 reported cases. How do you see this playing out?
Well, if we have history as a barometer, we can look back to things like the bird flu and even, I believe, the swine flu that was over the course of the last decade, and we can see how that kind of played out. I can see this lasting for a few months, kind of like the bird flu did. Bird flu, I think, lasted for maybe about 6 months once it hit here in the United States as well. I knew a couple of individuals that I knew personally that actually had bird flu, and they put them out for a bit. Fortunately, they were able to pull through and overcome their illness and get back to normal society stuff. But
it was that common where the bird flu was here. How did you know people with bird flu? I didn't know it was that prevalent.
Yeah, actually, I was working with somebody that had the bird flu. And I forgot the entire story of how he came in contact with it, but he came in contact with it. It put him out. It went in, I guess, that incubation stage. Once it hit him hard, and he was in the hospital. He had to leave work and go to the hospital because of how bad it was. And then everybody that he came in contact with at work, we had to deal with health officials as well there to make sure that we were clear of the flu-type symptoms.
Okay, Frank, this is funny because this is how I judge people, character. I know I shouldn't. You shouldn't judge anyone. But when I have a cold or something like that, I always notice the people, when I tell them I'm sick, who immediately take a few steps back. There's other people, they it doesn't faze them at all. Maybe they'll even put an arm around you, you know? And I don't know. Do you notice that kind of thing, or is that just me?
No, it's not an issue. I've seen it, working in the food industry for over 20 plus years. Before I took on to the YouTube platform, I saw I would see a lot. Like, hey, I'm sick, and they would step back a couple times. If you tell me you're sick, if I'm already in your bubble, I guess I'm just staying there. It's already too late. You've exposed me to whatever.
I'm already in it.
With you.
Yeah, that's my mentality is pretty much, I'm going to get sick or I'm not. But but if somebody says they have avian bird flu, I might take a step. That's a whole nother level. I can only imagine what your reaction was when the guy at work tells you it's avian bird flu. Okay, so you want to answer that?
I was just saying, it was quite a scene in itself. So,
oh man, so I guess a lot of people are comparing this to SARS. It shares a lot of similarities to SARS, and SARS was on like the front page of Newsweek, and it was a long time ago. I mean, relatively not that long, but what was it, like 2 decades ago? That big outbreak of SARS.
I think it was the early 2000s, wasn't it?
Yeah. So do you think that got so much more attention than this is, or is this getting more attention than that is, or is this a good comparison?
It's a good comparison. I mean, we can look back in the early 2000s and see what was going on then. I think right now, in the political world and even in the daily news cycle, it's being absolutely overshadowed with what's going on in DC right now. So right. I think at that time we didn't have anything as bad. I think at the time we were in the midst of the Iraq War, the second Iraq War, and it was after the point that we had already been there for a bit, so it wasn't really that newsworthy as far as they were covering it consistently. And that SARS thing, they just jumped right on it, and they jumped on it. It was on. So.
Yeah, it was.
But
and
you're right.
You don't see that right now. If it wasn't for Twitter, if it wasn't for podcasts and shows like ours, it would be complete radio silence, I feel.
I think you're right, because not many people, again, is really picking up. Everybody's still so focused on what's going on in D.C., and I've told my viewers, I said, I feel America's burnt out on impeachment. They want to know what else is going on. I said, we got all these other issues going on that nobody's talking about. I said, the Puerto Rico cover-up. I said, we have the coronavirus. I said, we have A, B, and C over here still going on, and nobody's talking about any of this stuff. I said, so that's why it's so important to help elevate, people that do talk about this stuff and get it out there.
Amen to that. Well, thank you today joining the podcast. Frank from the Let's Be Frank YouTube channel, over 8 million views, and you can catch him live every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 10 o'clock Eastern, and a ton of other content too. Thanks for being on the podcast, Frank.
My pleasure, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Kingston Country. You've been listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast.
Dan Kingston here. Are you fed up with the mainstream media? Do you want to support citizen journalism? The Dan Kingston Podcast is dedicated to asking questions and exploring topics the mainstream media won't touch. If you enjoy this content, would you help me give you even more for less than $1 a month? Yeah, less than $1 a month. You can help me do just that. And it's as easy as using Apple Pay or any credit card. And by the way, I'll be thanking sponsor names, your name, at the beginning of each podcast episode. So would you consider signing up for less than $1 a month? Find the link to become a sponsor in the description of this podcast episode, or visit anchor.fm/Dan Kingston. Thank you in advance for supporting citizen journalism and helping me provide you with even more content. I really appreciate it.